a day of sightseeing in the Holy Land of Jerusalem, the Promised Land. Today, we visited the holy sites associated with the life of Jesus Christ. As non-believers with little knowledge about him, we were struck by the large number of devoted followers. Their reverent worship was enough to make us understand how significant Christianity is to their spiritual lives. Amidst those who chase after material wealth, there are also people who find contentment and believe that spiritual fulfillment brings them true happiness. I had the opportunity to meet such individuals here. Their eyes, faces, and smiles conveyed that happiness. The bus stopped outside, and we moved inside the Holy Land area for about 10 minutes. We walked into a bustling ancient town, reminiscent of the old cities I had visited in Morocco, North Africa. The guide informed us that we were entering the Via Dolorosa, the path named after the stations of the Cross of Jesus in the Old City of Jerusalem. This route depicts the path Jesus walked while carrying the cross on his way to the crucifixion, ultimately leading to his resurrection 3 days later. Each station has its own marker and commemorative church for believers to perform rituals. Crucifixion was a Roman punishment. The victim, nailed to a cross, would eventually die from suffocation or exhaustion. This process was prolonged and extremely painful, used to publicly humiliate slaves or low-status criminals. Jesus was crucified because he challenged the supreme authority of the Roman Empire by becoming a spiritual leader for the Jews. Along both sides of the Via Dolorosa are souvenir stalls, but there is no aggressive selling to tourists. After completing the tour of the Via Dolorosa, we moved on to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. The church is said to have been built on the hill of Golgotha, where Jesus was crucified and, according to belief, where he rose again to complete his mission of redemption. Pilgrims crowded together like a procession, squeezing and maneuvering to enter inside. Afterwards, everyone patiently lined up to view each sacred site. The first sight deeply moved us. We were surprised by the intense cries and prayers pouring out, releasing years of suppressed emotions from the faithful who had long withheld or concealed their tears of joy. This was perhaps the cries and tears of happiness for witnessing firsthand the sacred sites. Personally, I felt those were tears of joy rather than anything else. Next is the Stone of Unction, the place believed to be where the body of Jesus was temporarily laid after being taken down from the cross. We saw many pilgrims touching the stone, pressing their faces to it in prayer, and some were crying loudly. Next is the place where the cross was planted after Jesus was taken down from it. The focal point of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is the tomb where Jesus was buried after his body was taken down from the cross. The exterior of the tomb resembles a lofty temple that connects with nature and the universe outside. We imagined the rays of light from above as if angels had just appeared. This miraculous experience made us forget the fatigue in our legs and the dryness in our throats from thirst, leaving only the desire to enter the tomb to satisfy our curiosity and reverence. After nearly 45 minutes of queuing and moving step by step, we finally entered the tomb. Inside, there was a shrine to Jesus in an area of about 15 square meters, with continuously burning candles creating a mystical ambience. I tried to sense the sacred energy around me, but the time was too short to fully absorb the holy atmosphere. Only 5 people were allowed in at a time, and each person could stay inside for only about a minute before having to quickly leave to make room for others. Thousands of pilgrims visit daily, and every year on the night of Easter, priests come here to receive the holy fire from heaven and distribute it to Christians worldwide. This is a mysterious religious phenomenon that science has yet to explain. Leaving the tomb of Jesus, we moved to the Dung Gate, also known as the Mughrabi Gate or the Silwan Gate, nearby. Here, we took photos from a distance of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, also known as the Dome of the Rock. This is the second holiest site in Islam after Mecca. Legend has it that from this mosque, the Prophet Muhammad ascended to heaven to receive the teachings of God. To enter the dung gate, we had to go through a security checkpoint where bags and cameras were scanned before we could go inside. From a distance, we tried to take photos of the Dome of the Rock, as non-Muslims are not allowed inside. We then visited the Western Wall, the most important and sacred religious site for Judaism. This wall is the remaining part of the temple that was destroyed and is considered a holy site by Jews. Originally constructed to support the western side of the temple, it is known as the Western Wall. The ancient stones of the temple are a testament to the glorious past of the Jewish people, a proud heritage, and an extraordinary national rebirth. According to legend, before the temple was built on this mountain, Abraham came here to sacrifice his son Isaac, and Jacob slept here and dreamed of a ladder to heaven. Later known as Mount Moriah, its peak was where Solomon built the temple on the land that his father, King David, had bought from Aravna the Jebusite 3,000 years ago. That temple was destroyed by the Babylonian leader in 586 BC, rebuilt 70 years later, and restored to its former glory by Herod 2,000 years ago. In 68 AD, the temple was destroyed and burned by the Romans, leaving its stones scattered everywhere, with only the Western Wall remaining intact. In 1948, when Jordan occupied Israel, Jews were denied access to the wall until Jerusalem was unified in 1967 and the wall was returned to the Jews. Today, when Jewish people come to pray, they all stand equally before the wall. Jews often feel their Jewish identity deeply at the Western Wall. When they touch the stones, Jews believe it connects them to their homeland, their people, and their long and tumultuous history. Standing at the wall, perspectives, thoughts, and emotions crystallize, and mundane matters fade away. The wall has endured over time, witnessing war and peace, destruction and revival. Across generations, it has absorbed prayers and yearnings from near and far. Inside our first point of access is the Western Square. Here, a large number of Jews and visitors gather before entering the Wailing Wall. This place also frequently hosts important national events such as priestly blessings during Pesach and Sukkot, candle lighting for Hanukkah, swearing-in ceremonies for new recruits of the Israeli armed forces and police, etc. It is also renowned for its bar mitzvah, or bat mitzvah, celebrations for Israeli youth and foreigners. After leaving the Wailing Wall, we had lunch and moved on to the city of Bethlehem, about 30 minutes from Jerusalem, currently under Palestinian authority. As we entered its vicinity, we were stopped by police officers who approached our vehicle armed, checking passports. The barrier marks the temporary boundary between the two cities. Bethlehem appeared poorer and simpler compared to the bustling activity of Jerusalem. Currently, Palestinian territory consists only of the West Bank, which is the eastern part of Jerusalem, and the Gaza Strip along the Mediterranean coast south of Israel bordering Egypt. In these two areas, Palestinians only control the enclaves, which are Palestinian villages where Palestinians live, while highways, seashores, and territories are controlled by Israel. Therefore, it is difficult to know which area belongs to Palestine or Israel without passing through checkpoints. The Palestinian checkpoints are relatively lenient, while those of Israel scrutinize papers and passports carefully. Another point is that the Palestinian regions have narrow, dusty roads, rundown houses, impoverished streets, and wandering children, while Israeli areas are relatively better. Every morning, Palestinians usually cross the border into Jerusalem to trade vegetables, fruits, and souvenirs for tourists or to work. To help you understand better, let me introduce a bit about the territory of Palestine. Before World War I, Palestine covered the entire region of what is now Israel, but today it consists only of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. As of 2021, the population of Palestine is approximately over 4 million. The Palestinian National Authority was established in 1994 following the Oslo Accords between the Palestine Liberation Organization and the Israeli government, with Mahmoud Abbas serving as president. According to its constitution, the capital is Jerusalem, but it is currently occupied by Israel, which also considers Jerusalem to be its undivided and eternal capital. Palestine's main international airport and seaport are in the Gaza Strip, but these gateways were destroyed by Israel following the Al-Aqsa Intifada uprising. Palestine does not have its own currency. Instead, the population uses Israeli currency or US dollars. We visited the Church of the Shepherds. According to the legend, this is where the shepherds were the first to be informed about a newborn who would become the Redeemer. We walked in, passing through a garden about 200 meters from the gate to the holy site. There were many ornamental trees, and next to it was a village with boys tending sheep, recreated for visitors. Climbing a few steps led us to the church area, where a priest was leading the congregation in prayer. After a brief stroll, we returned to our vehicle and continued to the Church of the Nativity. It was originally built by Emperor Constantine the Great and Empress Dowager Helena in 327 AD on the site traditionally believed to be the cave where Mary gave birth to baby Jesus. We had to wait in line for over 2 hours to get inside. After the visit, we returned to our hotel in Jerusalem to rest and have dinner. The next day, we checked out and continued our journey to Jericho in Palestine, about 36 kilometers northeast of Jerusalem. Jericho lies in the Jordan Valley, stretching along Mount Hermon to the north and the Gulf of Aqaba to the south. This is the lowest part of the world. Jericho is abundant with lush gardens, appearing like a green carpet in the Jordan Valley. In Arabic, Jericho means fragrance, because in ancient times the area produced a type of aromatic oil derived from the balsam tree, which was widely cultivated here. In ancient times, Jericho was called the City of Palms. In summer, Jericho is very hot, while in winter and spring the climate is pleasant. According to archaeologists, after numerous excavations, they believe that this place is considered one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in the world, with residents dating back to 900 BC. The road into the arid desert region we were traveling on is the same path that over 2,000 years ago, Jesus and his 12 disciples walked on their way to Jerusalem for the last time before his passion. Today, the road has become a highway with 2 lanes on each side, but it is still quite empty with very few vehicles. On both sides there are yellow rocky mountains, and the road winds through the slopes, with a deep abyss on one side, dizzyingly steep. The entire area is a vast desert of rugged mountains, with not a single house in sight. Occasionally, looking down hundreds of meters into the deep ravines, there is a small stream, and next to it, a cluster of date palm trees with lush green leaves. We stopped to visit the Mount of Temptation first, and we traveled up by cable car for about 5 minutes. The peak of this mountain stands approximately 360 meters above sea level, much like Sam Mountain in Jo Doc, Vietnam. On the steep slopes, there is still the Monastery of Temptation, which belongs to the Greek Orthodox Church. The Mount of Temptation is traditionally regarded as the mountain where Jesus was tempted by the devil for 40 days before the Passion. This mountain is also known as Mount Quarantania and Jebel Corantal. Both names arise from mispronunciations of the Latin word quarantina, meaning 40, referring to the 40 days of Jesus fasting. This 40-day period has become the model for the practice of Lent in Christian churches. From this mountain we could have a panoramic view of the Jordan Valley, the Dead Sea, and the surrounding mountains. After descending the mountain, our group moved to the Qasr al-Yahud baptismal site. This site is identified as the place where the Israelites crossed the Jordan River after 40 years of wandering in the desert. Ancient tradition also holds that this is the place where the prophet Elijah ascended to heaven in a chariot of fire. It is also where the commander of the king of Syria's army, seeking a cure for leprosy, immersed himself 7 times in the Jordan River and was healed. In Christianity, baptism is adopted as a rite of faith introduction, and the location where St. John baptized Jesus is considered of great significance by the Christian world. To this day, many believers still regard the river as having healing and sacred properties. Therefore, when we arrived, we saw many pilgrims gathered. They followed priests to be baptized in the same manner that St. John baptized Jesus at this section of the river. The water of the Jordan River is reddish-yellow due to the abundant sand and rocks from the desert, similar to the color of the Red River in northern Vietnam. I tried washing my face and took a sip to see if the water was salty or sweet. But in fact, the water here is brackish, meaning it's neither completely sweet nor salty. The Jordan River is situated in a structural depression and has the lowest elevation of any river in the world. The river originates from the slopes of Mount Hermon, on the border between Syria and Lebanon, flowing south through northern Israel to the Sea of Galilee, Lake Tiberias. After exiting the sea, it continues south, dividing Israel and the Israeli-occupied West Bank on the west from Jordan on the east before emptying into the Dead Sea. The Jordan River is over 360 kilometers long, but due to its meandering course, the actual distance between its source and the Dead Sea is less than 200 kilometers. After 1948, the river marked the border between Israel and Jordan from just south of the Sea of Galilee to the point where the Yabes River flows in from the East Bank. However, since 1967, when Israeli forces occupied the West Bank, the territory on the west bank of the river south of its confluence with the Yabes River, the Jordan River has served as an armistice line as far south as the Dead Sea. According to the baptism ritual, the priest stands in the river, and everyone lines up one by one. The priest recites a prayer, then covers the person's nose with one hand and immerses their head in the water with the other hand. Each ritual took about 20 seconds. After the baptism, although I didn't know if it had any mystical effect, I saw the faces of the believers glowing with happiness and joy. After that, we went to Kalia Beach in the Dead Sea area to immerse ourselves in the sea. The Dead Sea, located between the borders of Israel, Palestine, and Jordan, is the lowest geographical point on land. It is known as the navel of the earth. The Dead Sea stretches 80 kilometers from north to south and is 5 to 16 kilometers wide, with an area of 1,049 square kilometers and an average depth of 300 meters. Geologically, the Dead Sea lies within the rift zone of the East African, continent extending northward, also known as the subterranean conduit of the Dead Sea. The Dead Sea is like an inland lake where water can flow in but cannot flow out. This primary water supply relies on the Jordan River flowing from the north. Annually, the Jordan River contributes an average of about 5 billion cubic meters of water, accounting for 2/3 of the total water volume in the Dead Sea. In recent years, due to the extensive use of the Jordan River's water for irrigation, the water level in the Dead Sea has gradually decreased, and its area has shrunk. According to surveys, the Dead Sea contains about 110 billion tons of salt, enough to supply 40 billion people for 2,000 years. This is indeed an enormous natural salt reserve. Due to the high salt concentration in the water, apart from some bacteria, no other organisms can survive in the Dead Sea. Fish and shrimp carried by the river into the Dead Sea are salted to death. The entire area spanning hundreds of meters along the shore is barren, with no trees or birds in sight. Due to the Dead Sea water containing many minerals, which are beneficial for diseases such as rheumatism, muscle spasms, skin diseases, etc. Thousands of patients flock here every year in the autumn and spring. Under the guidance of doctors, they undergo a 3-week treatment, and about 80% of them achieve satisfactory results. Before swimming, we had to change clothes and either rent lockers or ask someone in the group who wasn't swimming to hold our belongings. In our group, there was an older lady who volunteered to sit out and guard the belongings for us. We were informed that the Dead Sea is very salty, so even non-swimmers can float on the water. We were also warned not to let the seawater get into our eyes because the salinity can damage the cornea. All these warnings seemed irrelevant until we actually immersed ourselves in the water. Oh, the feeling of floating in the water made us truly understand just how salty the sea is. Swimming in the Dead Sea is just an experience. You can't stay immersed for long. We tried holding a book, with both hands holding it and legs slightly bent, and found ourselves floating effortlessly. It felt like losing control, similar to trying to stand an oval-shaped ball upright on a table only for it to lie flat when you let go. In the Dead Sea, no matter how hard you try to lie face down, you always feel like you're being flipped onto your back. Isn't it fascinating? After the experience, we rinsed off with fresh water and returned to the bus. Our tour guide took us to visit a date palm shop in Jericho because missing out on tasting dates here would be a real omission. Jericho is known as the area with the highest concentration of date palm cultivation in Palestine, and its dates are considered some of the best in the world. Thus, our days of wandering in this holy land came to an end. We bid farewell to this small yet incredibly fascinating and sacred place. We travelers cherish the countless beautiful memories from our time here. We pray that God blesses this land with everlasting peace, happiness and prosperity for its people, and education for its children. Farewell.